Okay, good morning, everyone. Before we begin with the regular sequence of tefillah, next we're on to the next bracha of Atachon Adam Dat, after we completed the first three brachos, including Kedusha. But before we go to that, I want to say very quickly a short vort I thought of yesterday, actually, on the Parsha. Usually we don't speak about the Parsha anymore, but a very, very short idea that I thought of yesterday, and actually I told it to David Levine immediately after shir yesterday, the men's shir, and he liked it. So after his approval, good. That really means he liked it. Okay. So the pasuk says at the very beginning of Parshas Vayechi that Yaakov blesses Yosef with the fact, a very huge blessing actually, that his two children, Ephraim and Menashe, would be considered like two separate tribes. Even though Yosef is only one child of Yaakov, and really he should be entitled of being one tribe out of the 12, but yet he gets to become two tribes out of the 12. Actually, we have in total 13 tribes, because we had the 12 sons of Yosef, and if Yosef split into two, so we have 13. The thing is that many times we don't count either Ephraim and Menashe as two separate tribes, because sometimes we count them both as Yosef, and sometimes we don't count Levi. He's not included because they don't have a nachala. They didn't. Shevet, the tribe of Levi, did not get a specific land in Israel to live in. They were scattered all around the country, living in different towns. 48. They received 48 cities within the land of Israel, scattered within the different tribes. So it turns out that most of the times, the way we count the tribes, they turn out 12, but really, the maximum total of tribes are 13. So Yaakov says to Yosef, Ephraim Menashe, that's the term he says. They will be considered like two tribes, same as Reuven and Shimon are two separate tribes. But then it continues on and says, Umoladetecha asher oladta acharehem lecha yhiu, al shem acheihem yikareu benachalatam. Meaning, any other children. Now here it depends how to translate asher oladta acharehem. Simply, the simple meaning of the pasuk is that you had already. Meaning any other children that you have besides Menashe and Ephraim, al shem acheihem yikareu benachalatam. They will be included within Menashe and Ephraim. They will not be separate tribes. If you have 10 children, you don't get 10 tribes. There are only two. So any other child that you have will be included within Menashe and Ephraim. Rashi interprets asher oladeta achareihem, even though it's in past tense, holadeta. You already have or had. Rashi says, im yivaldu lecha. If you will have more children, then they will be included within Menashe and Ephraim. Why does Rashi do that? If the simple interpretation of the pasuk is asher oladeta, children you have already, why does Rashi switch it into im yivaldu lecha? You will have in the future. Very simply, because we don't find any other children till that moment that Yosef had. They're not listed anywhere by the Shivim Nefesh that they came to Egypt, including Yosef and his two sons. When you count the Shivim Nefesh, the 70 family members of Yaakov, we don't find any other child of Yosef. So Rashi says to himself, why is Yaakov saying that you already had if he had no more kids in the meantime? He didn't have any more children besides Menashe and Ephraim. So it has to be that Yaakov meant if you will have more children with Asenat, with your wife, they will be included within Menashe and Ephraim. So that's how Rashi explains it. So the thought that came up in my mind is, do we ever find in the entire Tanakh, when we have the counting of the Jewish people later on, In Bamidbar, we have several times that the Torah counts the Jews. Do we ever find any more children that Yosef had besides Menashe and Ephraim? Not that I know of. All the children are listed in grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Yaakov. They're all enumerated when they have the census of the Jewish people, the nation. And you read in Divrei Yamim, wherever you want to take it from, we never find that besides Menashe and Ephraim, Yosef had any other children. So, okay, Yaakov didn't know that when he said, if you may have more children, they'll be included in Menashe and Ephraim. He didn't know if he would have or not. But I think the end result, the final count of Yosef's family was only 2 boys, Menashe and Ephraim. So I said to myself, how come? Why didn't he have more children? Not talking about infertility issues and all that. Assuming he was able to have more kids. And Yaakov said to him, if you have more children, they'll be included. So Yaakov had imagined that he would have more kids. Why didn't he have? I thought to myself, Yosef learned a lesson on his own self. He said, what, am I crazy? If I have more children, Yaakov just said now that Menashe and Ephraim will be considered 2 tribes. Any other children you have will be included within Menashe and Ephraim. You know how much crazy jealousy that will create? If I have another child called Amichai, Yair, my 2 sons. You have another children. If you have more children that are perfect kids, but they will not become tribes of their own. Only Menashe and Ephraim will be their own tribe. You know how much jealousy that will cause? I, Yosef, myself, all I got is an extra coat from my father, and look what happened. They went crazy. So if now they'll be considered as secondary because they'll be included within the first 2 sons, who wants to have more children? He was afraid of that jealousy appearing in the next generation as well. I thought that may be the answer why he preferred, after receiving that blessing from Yaakov, he said, okay, so I'm done. That's what I'm leaving it with. I don't know if it's true or not, but it could be an idea. Okay. I believe Chazal say that they were around 13 or 15. Something at that age. Yeah, he still was able to have more kids. No, we know that from Yaakov saying that. He said, Yaakov is saying to Yosef, any other children you may have, if Yosef was too old to have more kids, or more so his wife, Asnat was too old to have more children, why did Yaakov say that? It had to be that they were of legible years of having more kids. And they preferred not to be, I think maybe because of this reason. Okay, anyhow, so now we'll do the tefillah course. Even before that, and halacha that came up this past Thursday night, listening to Rafi Malka, it came up a new halacha that I was totally unaware of. Every single Shabbat for 50 years. Yes, I think it's not so difficult. It's not so difficult to accept. Not at all actually. And we can gain a whole new mitzvah. It's unbelievable. We can gain a mitzvah that we may not have been doing all our lives till now. It sounds like impossible. How can that be possible? But it turns out that way. Not 1,000% the way I said it now, but it's close to it. So I'll quickly say over what I heard. And already this past Shabbat, which was 2 days after I heard it on radio, implemented it into my life, and it's very easy. And you gain a whole mitzvah that you may not be gaining otherwise. We know that there's the concept of mitzvot tzeichot kavanah. Any mitzvah you perform, deraisa, be it deraisa derabanan. The Mishnah Berurah in Siman Samech and Orach Chaim says both the deraisa and derabanan. You have to have intent in your mind, clear intent to fulfill the mitzvah. If you just do the mitzvah without thinking before, Hareini mechaven lekayem mitzvat aseh shel, you say that to yourself. You don't need to say it verbally. You can think in your mind that you are now prepared to fulfill a mitzvah of so and so. If you don't have that in mind, you're not yotzi the mitzvah. Mitzvot tzechot kavanah. It's me'akev. As if you just played a game. Now, it's not that simple as that, because the Chaye Adam, quoted by the Mishnah Berurah in Siman Samech, the Chaye Adam tells us that if you're doing something unusual, like take tefillin or lulav or matzah, no one shakes a lulav during the year besides for the mitzvah, purpose of a mitzvah, or no one puts on tefillin normally unless it's a mitzvah. So if you're doing something that's abnormal for a human being to do, unless it's for fulfilling a mitzvah, then it's obvious that your intent is to fulfill a mitzvah. Otherwise, why are you doing something so unusual? So therefore, says the Chaye Adam, it's as if you had in mind clearly to fulfill a mitzvah now. But it's only as if. Says the Mishnah Berurah, it's only diavad. It's still a chatchila better to actually spell out in your mind, I am now prepared to fulfill a mitzvah of so and so, such and such. It's always better to have that in mind before you begin the mitzvah. I'll give you a very simple example we have almost daily. Whoever eats bread, you want to say Birkas Hamazon. So we just automatically bench. So again, it counts for us as a mitzvah because of the Chaye Adam. Otherwise, why are you saying these words if it's not to fulfill a mitzvah? But more so, if you think a moment before you start benching, right, there it says, right, but not everyone says that on weekdays. Sometimes we sing it out as we sing Shir Malos and on Shabbos or Yom Tov, so we sing that as well. But the most famous one that we say it is Sfiras Omer. That's most famous. But it's not only by Birkas Hamazon and Sfiras Omer. It's every single mitzvah. D'oraisa d'Rabbanan, we're supposed to say, you know that whole long passage of Kmo shekatuv b'Torah and all that. Enough to say, I am now intending on fulfilling the mitzvah of, and you say which mitzvah you're about to fulfill. Very simple. It's a short line. Think that, and you made the whole mitzvah much better. I'll tell you where it comes in very, very, very handy and important. Every mitzvah sheben adam l'chaveiro. We fulfill a lot of mitzvahs. We visit the sick. We go to funerals, lo aleinu. We go to weddings. We do chesed, provide tzedakah to people, give tzedakah to an ani. If you do those things automatically, true, you're a good person. No one's taking away from the fact that you're a good person. And you're good to others, and you're positive, and you're accomplishing something. That's very true. But if you don't think a moment before you give the tzedakah, הריני מכוון לקיים מצוות עשה של צדקה, which is נתון תיתן לו, ולא יראה לבך בך לו, there's a mitzvah also to give tzedakah, or bikur cholim, or vayis hamet. Yeah. It lists all the things you said. Right. So just have, when you say it, have it in mind today. That's very general. And it doesn't have all, but it doesn't say all the stuff I just said now. Like it doesn't have tzedakah there. In that list, there's no tzedakah. And also, it's very general. You may not do this day the Levayas Hames or the Chanasas Kala. Another day you will do. It's better, much better if you, right before you step in to the wedding hall, so you think in your mind, that's it. You say that, and you've changed the entire experience, the entire 3 hours, spending 3 hours in the wedding. You've made it into a mitzvah, and not only into a fun activity or even being nice to people that you came to join their wedding. It changes the whole thing into becoming a mitzvah. And this, we can't even rely on the Chaye Adam, because it's not unusual to attend a wedding or to go to a funeral. Every human being, Goy or Jew, does it without any connection to a mitzvah. So it's not unusual. So it's not automatic that you mean for this to be a mitzvah of Achnasas Kala. So you had to say it literally or think it in your mind literally before you step into the wedding, or before you get to the cemetery, before you walk into the hospital to visit someone. So this is something that really changed, a slight switch, and it changes our life. We gain so many more mitzvahs that otherwise they're just nice things to do, good deeds, but they don't become a mitzvah if you don't think it clearly. So that wasn't the chiddush yet. That's a simple thing to, yeah. No, it's going to be on the same lines. Now let's go to Shabbos. By Shabbos,
you ever did so far,
no, chas v'chayila. Shabbos we do because we say Kiddush. Kiddush is what sanctifies the whole day for us to make it the meaning of a mitzvah. So that's simple. Kiddush does it for the whole Shabbos, for the entire Shabbos to be considered mitzvah of owning Shabbos, kvod Shabbos, all the mitzvahs that are involved in Shabbos. But there's what we call Tosefet Shabbat. By the way, one last thing I was going to say, anytime you say a bracha over a mitzvah, anytime you say a bracha, that's for sure shows your intent to fulfill a mitzvah. Because you say very clear, Baruch atah Hashem, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu le'aniach tefillin. So now you made it obvious that you're about to fulfill the mitzvah of tefillin, because you say, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. So anytime there's a bracha, you don't need to think of the mitzvah specifically of having the intent to fulfill mitzvah, because you're saying it with the bracha. But those examples we gave before of all the mitzvahs ben adam lachaveru, there's no bracha. We don't say shechavit tzivanu levaker cholim, shechavit tzivanu latet tzedakah le'ani. We don't say a bracha. So that's why, therefore, in those cases, it's been more important to have in mind that this is for the sake of a mitzvah that I'm doing this in this action. By the way, why isn't there a bracha for all these beautiful mitzvot of tzedakah, bikur cholim, achnasas kal, why isn't there a bracha? So there are various different answers to that by the Rishonim. The Rashba says something very interesting. The Rashba was asked in his responsa, and he he answers this very, very interestingly. He says, because mitzvahs ben adam lachavero, you're always dependent on another human being. If you want to, let's say, give tzedakah, so you need the needy person to receive the tzedakah. Or if you're at a wedding, well, the wedding is also for the people there to be mesameach hatan nekala, and it's also between the chassan and kala themselves to get married. So there's always another human being involved. And what's wrong with that? So why can't you say the bracha? It says the Rashba, since you're dependent on another human being, you may say the bracha with full kavana, and suddenly the guy disappears. There's no needy person in front of you. He said the bracha and he went away. Or he doesn't want to receive from you the money. So it's a bracha vatala. So just because it may become a bracha vatala, says Rashba, better not to say a bracha to begin with. Only if it has to do with yourself only, like the mitzvahs ben adam lamakom, that you have the artifact to do the mitzvah with, so there's nothing that can stop you from doing it, unless something supernatural happens, unnatural happens, like if you faint suddenly. But we're not afraid of that happening, so you can say the bracha. It's not dependent on any other human being to be included within that mitzvah. That's why I don't say bracha. There are other reasons that the Rishonim came up with. Why not? Yeah. Yeah. Also, why is that an exception? But you're right, because it's on the right side of the tablets of the Luchos Abris. It's on the right side instead of the left, right? But regarding the bracha issue, it's like ben adam lachavero totally, because it's again dependent on the parent receiving the kavod. That's why there's no bracha there either. That's also true. Before each kibud avayim, if you're just nice to your parents, it's beautiful. But if you say you turn it into a mitzvah. It turns it into much holier action. Okay, so now going back to Shabbos. Besides Shabbos itself, we know there's another mitzvah, d'oraita, according to most Rishonim, and that's how the Shulchan Aruch finally gives psak. that there's another mitzvah d'oraita on Shabbos, and that is Tosefet Shabbat. That we have to add from Michol LaKodesh. You have to add a few moments from a weekday to make it, to sanctify it, make it holy as if it was Shabbos already. So before Shabbos begins, there's a Tosefet Shabbos before Shabbos comes in, and there's a Tzir Shabbos after Shabbos ends. Both ends, we have a Tosefet Shabbos. We're adding a few minutes on both sides. So before Shabbos begins, the Tosefet Shabbos is when we accept upon ourselves Shabbat. So for women, it's when they light their candles. That's when they accept Shabbat. And for them, it's very clear because you're saying a bracha. So you're making it very obvious that you're doing this for accepting upon yourself Tosefet Shabbos. Right? But even then, and that goes for men as well. If you're davening mincha after candle lighting, or for men after accepting Shabbat, even then you can accept Shabbat for the sake of not doing malachos, from refraining from malacha. You have to say that clearly in your mind. That from now on, from the moment I light the candles, I will refrain from all malacha. I will not do anything that's not allowed on Shabbat. That still allows you to daven mincha, because you just accepted upon yourself the Tosefet Shabbos from the point of view of not doing malacha, but not accepting Shabbos as the day began. The day hasn't begun yet. It's still Friday. Now that's why I can still daven mincha, which is a Friday mincha. But I've accepted Tosefet Shabbos for the sake of not doing malacha. We can split it in two. And that's a good suggestion for those daven mincha after candle lighting, or for men who come to shul for mincha ketana, which is, by the way, much better daven mincha gdola on Friday. We daven at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, noontime, instead of davening mincha right before Shabbos, because of the Tosefet Shabbos problems. Because mincha ends mamash at shkia. In most shuls here, including Olari, we end mincha mamash very, very, very close to shkia, and then we've missed out on having Tosefet Shabbos. But if we say the way I just said now, before mincha begins, you say Areini kabel etzmi Tosefet Shabbat binyan isur asiyat melacha, then we're accepting Tosefet Shabbos by not doing melacha, and that's good enough to fulfill the mitzvah of the Tosefet Shabbos. But we haven't yet accepted Shabbos totally to interfere with davening mincha, because if you do accept Shabbat totally, you can't daven mincha. Mishnah Berurah says it's tied to the satra, you miss mincha, so you don't want to do that. So anyhow, that's all true for before Shabbos, that we accept the Tosefet Shabbos clearly, whether it's by candle lighting or by saying it. No matter how we say it, we accept Shabbat clearly. So that's clear intention to fulfill the mitzvah of the Tosefet Shabbos. That's not a problem. But this is where the chiddush came in. This person asked Rav Ophir Malka, how do we deal with the Tosefet Shabbos after Shabbos ends? In the end of Shabbos, extermination of Shabbos. So what we have in the calendar as the end of Shabbos is it really includes Tosefet Shabbos. Because Tzeis HaKochavim, let's take this past Shabbat as an example. Tzeis HaKochavim was at 5 o'clock approximately, and Shabbos ended at 5:16. Because we add 15 minutes approximately every Shabbos, we add after Tzeis HaKochavim. Tzeis is definitely, Shabbos is over with. Definitely, it's beyond Shkia, Bein Hashmashos, all that is ended. Tzeis HaKochavim, twilight, that's when it's definitely Tzeis Shabbos. No question, there's no more Shabbos in the world. And yet, we don't do Havdalah that moment of 5 o'clock or 5:01, we wait till 5:16. So we've added around 15 minutes to the Shabbos. Why? In order to fulfill the mitzvah of Tosefet Shabbos. And it's a d'oraita mitzvah. D'oraita mitzvah to add on to the Shabbos from beginning and end. But here comes the chiddush. We do that automatically. We're running from Shabbos into Tosefet Shabbos without even thinking. Most people, I think, aren't even aware that they're adding anything to the Shabbos. They think 5:16 is when Shabbos really ends. It's not true. It's Shabbos plus Tosefet Shabbat. Now, if we just run into it and continue our Shabbos until 5:16, then true, we fulfilled the fact that we added on 15 minutes to our Shabbos, but do we gain the mitzvah of Tosefet Shabbos? Seemingly not, because we didn't have in mind our kavana wasn't clear to fulfill the mitzvah of Tosefet Shabbos. We're just doing it, but we don't. Again, it's like going to Bikur Cholim or going to Alvayis Hames, but we're not turning it into a mitzvah of Tosefet Shabbat. That's only if you clearly say to yourself. Again, you don't have to mouth it. You don't have to say it out loud. You could if you want, because it's very nice to make everyone aware now that we're beginning the time of Tosefet Shabbos now. Of course, you have to refrain from all malacha. It doesn't mean that it's less. Actually, it is less holy, because if someone violates the Shabbos after Tzeitzah Kochavim, even if they haven't done Havdalah yet, it doesn't count as violating the Shabbos mamish. It's only they're transgressing a mitzvah's essay of Tosefet Shabbos. They don't get skila for that. Skila is only up to Tzeis, or even up to Shkia, because after Shkia it's already Safek Shabbos, Safek Sunday, Safek Motzei Shabbos. But up to Shkia, it's skila. It's a terrible, terrible sin to violate Shabbat until Shkia. Past Shkia and definitely past Tzeis, it's already only a mitzvah's essay that you're violating, but that's still bad enough. You should not do any melacha before you say Baruch Haba Kodesh L'chol, or before you do Abdallah, or say Tachon and Tanu and Mariv. But to become mitzvah's essay, that you're fulfilling a mitzvah set to add on to Tosefet Shabbos, to add on to the Shabbos, that's only if you think clearly in your mind you have kavanah for Tosefet Shabbos. I actually never heard of such a minhag. You mean to go outdoors and look for the stars? I never heard of that. No? I never heard of that. Wow. Interesting. I never heard of that. No, I think that's more simply to know when to be able to do malacha. No? That you know when to do malacha. You do to Shabbos, right? You still need to continue to Tosefet Shabbos. It's a mitzvah deoraita. The mitzvah deoraita. It's like, I never heard of that. Never heard of that. It's a new thing. I do by my watch. I don't look for 3 stars.
If you don't know the exact time, you don't have a calendar.
Then of course, right, true. No, but I never heard as a minhag to look for 3 stars, like a positive minhag. Fine, yeah, sure. That's true. 3 stars tells you Shabbos has ended. That's true. No, that's true, but that it depends, because the first time 3 stars appear, that's only Tzeitzah Kochavim. It's not yet Tosefet. You haven't added anything. But it's very, very hard to believe that when you see 3 stars, it's the first time 3 stars appear. It must be it probably is that there are 4 or 5 out there. You just not see them exactly. Oh yeah, it's mamish that second. So I would add 5 minutes after you've seen 3 stars. After you've seen 3 stars, I would add like 5 minutes just to make sure you're past the Tosefet Shabbat. Not just 3 and that's it. Right? We said 5:05. We said add like 5 minutes and then you can start correct. Because you fulfilled the Tosefet Shabbos, and now you don't have to worry for the full 15 minutes, right? If you're desperate to do some malacha after that. The makor is from Yom Kippur, actually. And Yom Kippur it says, "Betish'al lachodesh ba'erev, me'erev ad erev tishbetu shabbatchem." So the Gemara darshans this. Since when does the Torah speak in a goyish manner? Because Tish'al lachodesh ba'erev, it's like saying tonight, meet me. No, it's like saying yesterday. Or let's say saying today, meet me Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Let's meet Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. That's not a correct way to speak according to the Jewish calendar. Because what's Wednesday night? It's past Tzeit. Tzeit is like 5:05 now. So 8 o'clock is past Tzeit, so it's really Thursday. There's nothing to do with Wednesday anymore. Wednesday is finished at 5:05. Wednesday is finished. So meet me Wednesday night. You know when that is? That's Tuesday. Meet me Wednesday night. That's Tuesday at 8. Because that's Wednesday night. That's the night of Wednesday. Meet me Wednesday night. You mean meet me Thursday. I know, by the way, I know a person in Kiryat Moshe. His name is Tanchum. In Kiryat Moshe, who is very, very, very careful and stringent, never to use secular dates about anything. Nothing. And he's an accountant, so it's much more complicated. But he doesn't work at all according to secular dates, only according to Hebrew dates, only according to Hebrew month. He doesn't care the law. He doesn't care anything. He gives in his right. It's all about the Zara. It's all based on Christianity and things. So when he says meet me Tuesday night, he means Monday night. That's Mamish. That's how he talks. You have to after once or twice you miss the meaning, you understand. And when he used to be in Miluim, he's now older. He doesn't go to the army anymore. He used to get reserves to come to Miluim in the army. When he received the Tzav Miluim to come, it had the secular date. He just ripped it. He didn't read it. So his officers understood. So he's the only soldier in the country that they only print out the Hebrew date on his Tzav Miluim to get him to come, and that's the only way he would come. He's very strong about it. He also prints out calendars with only Jewish date, nothing with a secular date on the calendar. Of course, his checks he writes with the Hebrew date, nothing secular. His emails, he was able to figure out a way that when he sends an email, it doesn't say the English date.
But he doesn't use the Hebrew month either.
No, he does, of course.
So that's also about the Zara.
The Hebrew month?
Of course, that's the irony of irony. So
No, because it's based on Bavel, because of the Bavel. Arishon or Hashani.
And not to use
I understand your point, but the Ramban.
I should call it.
Yeah, no, so no, he knows that, but it's different because the Ramban brings up your point. He discusses it in the pasuk of Hachodesh Elechem Rosh Chodashim in Shmos Yud Bet, the second pasuk of Shmos Yud Bet, where it talks about Kiddush HaChodesh. So in Parshas Bo. So the Ramban on the spot there says that every galus we are meant to remind ourselves of the Geulah from every galus. So the Ramban says that's why the Torah counts Rishon, Shani, Shlishi, Ravi. Where are we counting from? Which is the first month? Nisan, not Tishrei. Nisan is the first, and then Shani is Iyar, Shlishi is Sivan, and so on. It says the Ramban, why are we naming the months after Nisan? Because of Geulat Mitzrayim, to remind us every single month of the year that we came out of Egypt. Says the Ramban, that's only good until the second Galus, which was Galus Bavel. We went into exile in Galus Bavel, and we came back. Now we stop remembering the Yetzias Mitzrayim Galus, Geulah. Now you want to remember the Yetzias Bavel Geulah. So we took the names of the months of Babylonia, Bavel, and we named the months after them to remind us of the Geulah Bavel, of Galus Bavel. So I think you're right, Hani, by saying that, because in our days, we're past the third Galus, and we're into the third Geulah now. So we should be renamed, according to this Ramban, I had this in mind many, many years already. According to this Ramban, we should be renaming the months to remind us of the third Geulah we're in now. So you should give the names of the months today, which is what?
We liberated Jerusalem.
Yes, so we should name the months new names, give them new names resembling our Geulah now. We have to think of names that resemble the Geulah. It's hard to, it's a nice exercise. No, but it's not true anymore. It's not true because that's going back to Galus Mitzrayim, Geulas Mitzrayim. We had to say we had to make up names. I thought, for example, to use the names that some of the months we have in the Tanakh, we have names that were in the days of Shlomo HaMelech. So we have the Iyar is called Chodesh Ziv in the Tanakh itself. It says Chodesh Ziv, and that's Chodesh Iyar. So that's a very nice Israeli name, Ziv. Ziv is light. And Iyar was the light of the third Geulah, because both Heyar and Kafchet Iyar were both the incidences of independence of our state. So to name it Ziv is much more referring to our third Geulah than Iyar or than Chodesh Shani. Those two resemble Mitzrayim and Babel. Now you want to resemble our state of Israel. So Chodesh Ziv would be a beautiful name for Iyar, and it appears in Tanakh that way with that name. And for example, Tishrei, we have in the Tanakh Eitan. Yerach HaEitanim is Tishrei. And again, that's a very nice Israeli name. And Eitan is strength. Eitan is Chozek, strength. So I think these types of names.
We'll find 10 more. I'm on with you.
Yeah, right. So if you find such names that are very Israeli and beautiful words that resemble this Geulah, this independence that we are now, then we're following the Ramban's idea that every Geulah, we're supposed to name the months after that Geulah. Anyhow, back to the issue we were talking about before. So I'll just finish off by saying that Rav Ophir Malka answered to this person who asked the question. He said, you're right. Every single Shabbat, when we pass Tzet HaKochavim, we have to look in the calendar that has the timing. You know, when Tzet HaKochavim is every single, it's very easy, by the way, to calculate, because 20 minutes after candle lighting is Shkia. And 20 minutes after that is Tzet HaKochavim. So if you add 40 minutes to candle lighting, you know when by Motzei Shabbat it's Tzet HaKochavim. It's very easy to calculate. 40 minutes after candle lighting. And it's one day later, so it's very close. It's half a minute more. So add 40 minutes to candle lighting, you know you're at Tzeit. You don't need to look at stars or anything. You got it by that. And then when that occurs, you say, Hareini mekabel, Hareini mechaven lekayem mitzvat aseh shel Tosefet Shabbat. Sorry, I forgot to finish the Rivki's question from before. Where's the source for Tosefet Shabbat? So that's why I didn't remember why we got into this tangent of dates. So again, back to the source. When the Torah says, "B'tish'a lachodesh ba'erev, me'erev ad erev tishbetu shabbatchem." Since when does the Torah speak like a goy? B'tish'a lachodesh ba'erev is like saying tonight, Monday night. Tish'a lachodesh, the 9th of Tishrei, ba'erev, that's when you have Yom Kippur. That's not true. It's Yud. It's on the 10th of the month of Tishrei. It's not the 9th at night. That's against Tanchum totally. In the Torah, it speaks according to the Goyish way of seeing things, that the night is after the day, goes after the day. We know that the night begins the new day. So the Gemara felt this strange way of the Torah expressing Yom Kippur, telling us that it's 9th of the month at night. So the Gemara says that the Torah meant to tell us on the 9th of the month already begin Yom Kippur. That's why it says B'tish'a lachodesh ba'erev. Had it said Ba'asiri lachodesh, like any other chag, then we wouldn't know that you have to add some moments from Tish'a lachodesh, from the 9th of Tishrei, to add on to Yom Kippur. This way the Torah says B'tish'a lachodesh, on the 9th, Ba'erev, and then the night, Tishbetu Shabbatchem. That's where we learn you have to add Tosefet Yom Kippur a few moments before Yom Kippur really begins, before the day really begins. And from Yom Kippur, we learn out to Shabbos and Yom Tov, except for the Rambam. The Rambam is the only Rishon who holds that there's no such thing as Tosefet Shabbos. He holds there's no such thing. There's no chiyuv and it doesn't work, doesn't do anything. And there's no such thing as Tosefet Yom Tov, only Yom Kippur. In the Rambam, it's only Yom Kippur is the Deraita fulfillment of Tosefet. Right, it says it, but all the other Rishonim tell us that it's for all Chagim and Shabbos. Why? Because it says Tishbetu Shabbatchem. So they say Gzera Shabbat from the word Shabbatchem, although it was written regarding Yom Kippur, but the word Shabbat resembles all the Shabbos as well, and Yom Tov, because even Yom Tov, the Torah refers to as Shabbat, where by Pesach, it says, "Mimochrad Shabbat yinifenu hakohen." So the Torah refers to Yom Tov even as with the word Shabbat. So that's how they include all Shabbos and Yom Tov, and that's how the Shulchan Aruch paskins in the end. Unlike the Rambam, the Shulchan Aruch paskins is Tosefet Shabbos and Tosefet Yom Tov Deoraita for all Shabbosim and for all Yom Tovim, not only Yom Tov. And it says me'erev ad erev. So the Gemara learns out that there's Tosefet Shabbos from before and after. That's how we learn the after also. So it's in mitzvahs deoraita esa deoraita to add on Yom Kippur before and after, to every Shabbos before and after, to every Yom Tov before and after. So if we're just automatically going into the Tosefet without even thinking, so true, we're fulfilling the Tosefet. We're not saying you're not fulfilling it, but it's not acting it as a mitzvah without having in mind, mitzvat Tosefet Shabbat. That's all you need to say. That's all you need to think. In your head has to say it. You have another 15 minutes. So within those, doesn't to be the moment say it appears. Within those 15 minutes, make sure to set a certain moment to think that in your head. And then you're turning it into a mitzvah and not only refraining from Allah. Yeah. In the beginning of the day, I was asked that, or even more so, could one have an intent when the year begins? Just say when the year begins. Every single Shabbos, I like to have Tosefet, to fulfill the mitzvah Tosefet Shabbos for every Shabbos of the year, before and after. And then you're done with it for the whole year. But it doesn't work. It has to be at the moment of fulfillment of the mitzvah. Why? Because we need, otherwise it's a sechdat. You thought of it at the beginning of the year, before the beginning of Shabbos, and now you slept. Yeah, but you went to sleep. You went to sleep at night, so your mind isn't on it anymore. Yeah. From one to the other. If you don't take your mind off, then it's okay. If you don't distract your mind with other things, you'll say, right, there are conditions, but not to fulfill a mitzvah. That was, for example, we said that, for example, if we say a bracha rishona, that taking us back to brachos. When we say a bracha rishona over a food and we're still at home, then we wanted to include any other food that is of the same bracha as long as we haven't left the house. If you leave the house, it doesn't matter how much kavanah you have, it doesn't work anymore. But to make sure it includes all the foods of the same bracha, you can make a condition once a year that when you say shehakol, you mean for all the drinking and eating during that time we're in the house, that it should include all the shachakols. No, but to fulfill a mitzvah, it's more than just a condition. I see a few chats here. Okay. Sorry, I just saw this now. Can you please repeat comments coming from the class? We can't hear them on Zoom. Okay. You're right. You're right. What's that? Yeah, but sometimes you have to guess what the question was. Okay, sorry, I'll try to do that. Okay, I'll try. Sorry, Pamela. I'll try to do it as of now. Okay. We have last 4, 5, 6 minutes. So we won't go into tefillah. Tefillah is a whole new bracha. So let's wait for next week for that. So we'll just do a halacha that's of Hilas Brachos that where we were. It's actually also starting a little bit of a new topic, but we can start it now at least. We said last week that for bracha achrona, if you hadn't eaten a kazait, which is what we want to discuss right now, of how much that is, a kazait of a solid food within 4 minutes, you do not say a bracha achrona. Even if you ate a whole bag of pretzels, but you ate very slowly, and each kazait, which is a certain amount of pretzels, let's say 6, 7 pretzels of the small those shminiyot, they call them, like an 8 or like a line or like around like a ring. They have all kinds of shapes, the pretzels. If you ate, let's say 6, 7 of them, probably kazait. Of course, you don't count the whole. You have to eat the actual dough of the pretzel. So if you ate a certain amount within 4 minutes, it deserves a bracha chorna valamichya. But if you ate them very slowly, pretzel, and then another half a minute, another pretzel, another half a minute, another pretzel, by 4 minutes, you only ate 3, 4 pretzels. That's not a kazait. And you keep on eating, you finish the whole bag, you don't say bracha chrona. You finish the whole bag, you can't say alamich. And though you're exploding, you're totally full. But you need this amount within 4 minutes to be considered achila. Where do we learn this from? Because it says, ve'achalta, ve'savata, ve'achta et Hashem Elokecha. That's the only bracha chrona that's deoraita, birkas hamazon. Only bracha in general is deoraita, birkas hamazon. So it says, ve'achalta, ve'savata, ve'achta et Hashem Elokecha. Only if you eat and you're full, satiated, then you bench. So eating, en achila pachot mikazai. The term le'echol, anytime it appears in the Torah, not only by brachos, also when it says ba'erev tochlu matzot, at the night of Leila Seder, that is a mitzvah d'oraita to eat matzah. It says tochlu, so we learn from that we have to have a kazait. Or what else do we have? Mitzvah lechol. I guess by korbanos, mitzvah of eating kodshim. Today, by the way, is rarely a mitzvah to eat. It's only matzah v'leila seder, and there's a gzera shava for Sukkot. The first night of Sukkot to have a kazait is also mitzvah d'oraita. The first night of Sukkot, the first night of Pesach. Those are the only 2 mitzvahs esa to eat. Kazait. What the first? No, of bread. Every Shabbat, no, that's true, but every Shabbat is Oneg Shabbos, to fulfill the Oneg Shabbos, and which is not mitzvah d'oraisa. It's not written in Torah to eat on Shabbat. It says it, V'karata l'Shabbat Oneg, that's in Yeshayahu. What do they do?
Divinity on everything on Pesach.
Hideni, of Sukkah also, right. Could be, right. Could be. That's a good idea. Although, even the connecting the whole shir together, although even mitzvah derabanan requires the chavan l'shem mitzvah, but it's more so, they're right. Yeah, that's a good idea. Whatever, anytime there's a mitzvah to eat, the minimum amount is kazait within 4 minutes, because that makes it an important session. You're sitting down and eating it. It's not like a randomly taking a snack. That's the amount of the timing that makes it a sit-down meal, so to speak. It's important, and that requires bracha chron. So the first thing we have to learn, and we won't do much of it today, is to learn how much is kazait. How do we measure for each and every food? We're having a bag of bamba. We're having an apple. We're having a cucumber. Anything we're eating ptitim, couscous, chicken, meat. Anything we're eating, how do we know how much a kazait is in order to say bracha chron? So most of the time, when you're eating normally, like bite after bite after bite, you don't have to rush normally, and you're eating, sitting down for a meal, for sure you ate a kazait within 4 minutes. You don't need to even calculate. And then you say the alamichya, if it deserves alamichya, by nefashas, if it deserves nefashas, or birkas hamazon. That's very simple. The question arises when you're only snacking, having a snack during the day. Then how do you know to measure how much you've had to make it a kazait? So the general rule is 27 cc volume of solid foods. That's the amount, 27 cc. But that still doesn't help us because it's very complicated to measure. It's not weight, it doesn't go by weight, not gram, it goes by volume. Because by water, the weight and the volume is the same exact measurement. 27 milligram of water is 27 cc of water, 27 grams, sorry, of water, milliliter, which is 1 gram of water is 27 cc of water. It's the same because it's condensed in the way that the weight and the volume are the same. By any liquid, by every liquid, it's that way. But for solids, it's not true. For solids, something can weigh a certain amount of grams or kilos, and the volume is totally different. I'll give you one example, and with this we'll end today. Let's take bamba. That's the most clear example. Take a bag of bamba, which weighs, it says it on the bag. 15, there's the mini bags of 15 grams, some are 25 grams. Some are much larger, those large bags of bamba, but the average small bags of bamba are 25 grams. That's what it says it on the bag itself. We sell it sometimes in packages of 10. It says 25 times 10, meaning 25 gram bag times 10 bags. Now, 25 grams is less than 27. So seemingly, if we would go by weight, it would mean you eat a whole bag of bamba within 4 minutes, you don't say bracha achron. That's not possible because you've had a whole bag of bamba within 4 minutes. I'm not talking about eating it slowly, but you could have a whole bag of whatever you want and it's not kazait within 4 minutes. But you had within 4 minutes a huge amount of bamba and it's not kazait. That's definitely not true. Why? Because we don't go by weight. Had we gone by weight, then it would have been true. It's not 27 grams, it's only 25. But since we don't go by weight, we go by volume, the weight of bamba is very light. Pick up a piece of bamba, it's very, very light. Nothing, doesn't weigh anything almost. So all those pieces of bamba together only weigh 25 grams. But volume, they're very puffy. They're very puffy, so they take up a lot of volume, take up space much more than they weigh. So true, there's a lot of air in every piece of bamba, and that's another thing we have to learn next week, B'ezrat Hashem. Do we include the air as part of the volume, or do we have to crush it as if there was no air in there? So we'll learn next week, when do we calculate the air within the volume and when do we not? But yeah, we'll get to that also next week. If the matchbox is the way we measure kazait, we'll get to that next week. But just I'll finish with the bamba. The final calculation of bamba is that definitely if you had half a bag, if you had, let's say, 15 pieces of bamba, 15 pieces, then even if you don't count the air, you still have enough volume to make it a kazait. Again, we'll learn next week how we exactly calculate, but I'm telling you this as a fact. 15 pieces of bamba definitely are kazait. And that's way less than 1 bag of the 25 gram. So if you have 15 pieces of bamba within 4 minutes, you've had the volume of 27, even though the weight is much, much less. So we go by volume, and therefore by 15 pieces of bamba within 4 minutes, you say Bari Nefashos, no question. No question. Next week, we'll learn further how to calculate in the different types of foods. We have a whole list here of actual foods and how much of each food is considered a kazait. Okay. That's it for today.
Thank you very much.
A week. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov.
Yeah, everyone.
Thank you very much. Shavua Tov.
You're very welcome. Shavua Tov. Bye-bye.